got to have the confidence to fail. One of my favorite quotes is from artist Bob Ross, and he says that talent is a pursued interest. Anything that you are willing to practice, you can learn. When I found that I could express my feelings and how I felt on the inside and translate that into something tangible and beautiful, and that was my own right in front of my eyes, it really sparked a lifelong love in me. And from that moment, I was hooked. And I didn't want to work in corporate America. I was tired of having bosses and menial jobs that really didn't fulfill me and didn't give me any sort of love or gratification. It was really just a way to make money. My husband of, at that point, 10 years, looked at me and he said, I love you and I support you, and if you want to make art, go and make art. And I am forever grateful for that opportunity. And my husband is a tattoo artist. He has been a working artist for over 15 years. And it took that long, even for him, for us as a family, to be stable enough for him to give me that opportunity. And when I thought really hard about what that looked like, I mean, I didn't even have a name at that point. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I wanted to do something different. So much of the art that I love to create reminds me of the nature that soothes me and calms me. And there was one day I went to the beach with my kids to kind of just let it all sink in. And we're enjoying the beach, as you know, your family does when you go. And I'm walking along with my children, and there had just been a particularly bad storm. There's a lot of seaweed and all this stuff, but unfortunately there was also a lot of plastic and a lot of trash, and it kind of made it difficult to go and find a nice spot for my family to sit down and enjoy the beach. So I'm walking along with my youngest daughter, and she says to me, Mommy, there's so much trash. The mermaids can't swim. And it was like the light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, right? And as parents do, you come up with some convoluted story to, calm your kids and make them feel better. So I told my daughter that the mermaids brought the trash to us, that the only reason why it's on the beach is because they brought it to us, and we need to pick it up and we make sure it gets where it needs to be and it doesn't hurt our mermaids. And it was such a simple explanation for a 7-year-old to comprehend. But what are we doing about it? What can I do about it? Hi, I'm just me. I'm, a mom of 2 living in suburban Florida. What could I possibly do to make an impact and make this matter? Well, I want to launch a business. I want to launch a business that reflects my love of the ocean, and not just its love, but its aesthetic. I want to create beautiful oceans. So I knew with Mermaid Trash, getting out there and picking up trash was maybe an unrealistic goal. So as unpractical as it seemed to me to get out there and pick up trash myself, I thought, well, who's doing this? Who can I contribute to? How can I make every single purchase with Mermaid Trash mean something? The moment I looked it up There are already so many amazing companies and amazing organizations and conservation efforts that are already in place that want to do the work, that have the means to do the work. They just need funding. And then I found 4Ocean. They're an incredible company based out of Florida. They are out there in multiple countries 7 days a week pulling trash from the ocean. So it was very important to me to be able to take the proceeds from every single purchase that is made at Mermaid Trash and give just a small amount back to our community. I started Mermaid Trash with $250 and a prayer. $250, a prayer, and a very skeptical workbench in my garage. Resin is relatively a new art form as far as mediums go. So there's still a lot of artists experimenting with new ways to use it. And from the very beginning, the very first premise of Mermaid Trash, I always knew I was going to educate and I was going to help and I was going to be the most transparent artist that you could find anywhere. I love creating art. Art's the given. I can create art all day, every day, and be happy in my own little world. But how do I get out there and make people inspired? How do I make them want to create what I'm creating? And I want everybody to maybe in some part experience what I get to experience every day when I come to work. So today we're going to be making one of my traditional resin ocean artworks with some of my favorite products from Michaels. Before we get to even doing the resin, there's a lot of things that can go into an ocean piece like this. Painting the background and adding sand textures is one of my favorite things to do with resin art because it really brings that mixed media element into it for me. And at heart, I've always been a mixed media artist. So since we're just painting, I'm just gonna lay it flat and we're gonna get started by adding just a tiny bit of water to the canvas. And I'm gonna drop directly onto the canvas the pigment. And it's gonna spread and do some really fun things right on its own. And then we're going to use some heat and air to blow this around and make some interesting patterns. So I'm just gonna take my blow dryer here and just allow the air to blow around on the canvas until it's mostly dry. So now that we're done with our painting part and we got our background all nice and ready, we're gonna grab our coarse pumice gel from Golden. And this stuff is really fun. It has a great sandy texture. And I'm literally just gonna start taking some big old globs of this and making sure that it gets onto my canvas and make sure that it's really stuck on there good. And once we get that all patted down and even, that looks pretty good. While our coarse pumice gel is wet, I'm going to take my sand. I want to be able to sprinkle it very controlled. I'm just going to keep sprinkling around all the edges, just making sure that everything is coated real nice, and the excess is just going to fall right off, anything that doesn't stick. So when you sprinkle the sand into it and it's not actually part of the mixture, it becomes a lot more smooth, giving you that kind of washed up on the beach look, which is something that I really like. So now that our canvas is dry, I'm going to use some of this mixture that I prepared beforehand with just a bit of this golden high solid gel gloss. It's a very thick kind of medium that once it dries, it goes clear. So what I like to do is add just a little bit of clear white sand into it and a drop of white pigment. In honesty, you could really just skip ahead and go ahead and pour your resin over it. There's no reason that you can't pour resin over it at this stage. However, doing this allows me to control that very first resin wave, and I think it gives it a bit of 3D texture and just another element, another layer of added realism. And to apply it onto the canvas, I'm gonna take the part of the palette knife that is farthest away from me, and I'm gonna lean it onto the canvas very gently. And once I have that position, I can then roll the palette knife towards me, and that bead that we loaded up is gonna come right off onto the canvas. And any excess that I have, I'm just gonna kind of brush back. I'm gonna keep doing this all the way down. I like to make sure that this has enough of a lip built up so that when we pour the resin, it can't go past this lip. This is gonna act as our dam and our barrier to prevent the rest of the resin from getting onto our sand. So now that I'm ready to do my resin, I want to make sure that I gather all of my materials, and safety is the most important thing when working with resin. You always want to make sure that you have gloves on when working with this kind of chemical. As the resin cures, it is a thermosetting plastic, so once you mix the two parts together, the catalyst, often referred to as a hardener, begins to solidify and heat the resin, turning the liquid into a solid. Once my canvas is up off the surface, make sure it's level with a leveler, because you don't want to do all your beautiful artwork and then have it slide all off one side because it's not level. And this is a 1-to-1 resin, which means that I'm gonna pour exactly the same amount of hardener as I am resin. So I want to do 3 separate colors. So I'm just going to do about 1 ounce of the very lightest color because it's the one that I'm gonna need the least of. And then about 1.5 ounces of each of the middle and dark color. Once I do that, I'm still gonna have a few ounces left over in my cup, but I'm gonna save some of that for my white as well as some clear to put down in the front. You wanna do this with purpose and quickly because now the clock is running on our resin and we only have a certain amount of time to work with it. So again, making sure that all of your materials are gathered before you begin pouring is really essential to making sure that you have a successful pour. I have some mica pigments here that I'm also going to add, like I said, to mix and match the micas and acrylics to give it both that very nice opacity and make it very bold, but also have that beautiful shimmer that, of course, makes the ocean so beautiful. And for my middle tone, basically what I do is I take a little bit of the light tone and a little bit of the dark tone and I mix them together. Now that all my pigments are mixed, we're gonna start laying each color out one by one on the canvas. I like to start with the clear that was left over In our original mixing container, I left about an ounce or two to make sure that I have enough to go over this sand part that we created and come right up to the edge of the lip from the modeling paste. Pour slow and steady. And then one by one, we're gonna pour across our canvas each color. Now to blend our colors a little bit, you can use a spreader or a popsicle stick, but my hands are my favorite tool, so I'm gonna use my fingers. And I'm just gonna kind of make a wave motion back and forth across the canvas, allowing my colors to subtly mix and make some really pretty designs. So I'm tilting this forward to bring some of my resin back to that front lip of the canvas. I want to create a nice thick pillow of medium where my white is going to go. So I'm just gonna take my cup and just bring it along the edge of the wave as it comes out of the cup. So to make sure that our white is blended into this wave break that we made and make it look like it's a part of the same thing, I'm just gonna take my popsicle stick just a little bit and bring some of that white up until it kisses, touches this modeling paste ever so slightly. Make sure that it's attached. The next part is kind of the funnest thing about this whole thing, is where the magic really takes place. So we're gonna turn this on away from me and start at an angle away from you. So I really wanna go over that once. You don't wanna spend too much time in any one particular area, or you're gonna overheat your resin and it's just gonna become a wispy mess. So the trick to this technique is really starting at one end and working your way over to the next without going over the parts that you just blew out. So the last step that I'm going to do before we go ahead and cover it, which is the most important thing that you want to do at the end, is I'm going to take my blowtorch here and I'm just going to lightly glaze over the entire surface to make sure that there are no bubbles left or inconsistencies. This also helps the white pigment form and sell and turn into a beautiful ocean. And you just want to do this very lightly over the whole piece. And if you look at it in certain angles, you can see the little air bubbles popping. And you just want to make sure that you do that until you see no more bubbles popping. So now that our first layer is done, we're gonna wait for this to cure. And one of the really fun things about epoxy resins is that you can layer them almost infinitely. You can make as many layers as you want to. The possibilities with resin are almost limitless. It's really only bound to your own imagination. So really, when I first started shipping and running my own business, it was really difficult to try and get a handle on every aspect. You have to wear all hats as an entrepreneur. And the art side, of course, is always going to be fun to it. I think at the end of the day, I spend so many hours behind this desk because I just want to get it done so I can get back into the studio and keep creating. So really over time, the best way that I've been able to help myself with shipping and the back end, all the behind the scenes aspects, is really finding the best way to streamline every single process that you can possibly get your hands on. If you're doing a lot of shipping and it's consuming so much of your time, try to outsource some of that. Get somebody in to help you. As a business owner with Mermaid Trash, that's one of the things that I realized really quickly is that I'm not going to have time to do all of these things all at once. I can't do a million things in one day. So time management is such a big thing when you're trying to take that leap from hobbyist to entrepreneur. You've got to take not just time for yourself, because your creative mind, you're just gonna lose it. And then what are you gonna ship? You haven't been able to create, and then there's no shipping on the back end. You don't wanna shoot yourself in the foot before you even get started. There's so many, I think, small business owners that don't take the time to invest in themselves and to take small things off their plate. And once we opened the brick and mortar, one of the very first things that I did was get some help in here. I have somebody who comes in several times a week to do most of this packaging for me so that it's taken off my plate. And because I was able to free up so much of my time, I made better investments. I made more money because I had more time to do stuff. And whatever, I pay hourly to the person who helps me shipping, I make it back over and over and over again because I have so much more time to make business decisions and focus on my business instead of shipping. So one of the best decisions that I made for my business early on was reinvesting in myself, was taking that $250 and turning it into a project and selling the art or the ideas or the concepts from that project and reinvesting it in myself. I tried not to get caught up necessarily on how much money I was making at first, but taking what I did make and making the decision to believe in myself. As I've transitioned further away from making smaller things, when you first start working with epoxy resin, you tend to stay with small projects, things that are manageable, but I kind of quickly outgrew my garage and I didn't have enough room for all of these things, and Mermaid Trash just got into the brick and mortar. So what comes from here going forward, it feels like I've kind of hit the jackpot because there's so many more amazing things to come. Mermaid Trash is only just getting started. We're gonna be doing classes. I want to teach in person. I want to write books. I want to just explode my knowledge and my love for art all over the world. The biggest advice that I could give to artists and to beginners or to anybody wanting to take the leap from, hobbyist to entrepreneur is you've got to have the confidence to fail. Failing is an amazing learning tool, and unless you work enough and try hard enough and give yourself the opportunity, it's just not going to happen. And I opened a doorway for myself with Mermaid Trash because I realized that I had to take everything that I had and put it on the line with this. Mermaid Trash is my at least third or fourth attempt to launch my art career. And I've worked in mixed media for over 15 years. I put in the time, I put in the dedication. I love my art, but I knew at the end of the day, what was it all for? I could create stuff, But what about the next generation? What are we doing as a community, as an artisan community, to support each other? Not just give each other inspiration through beautiful Instagram pictures, but how do we take that and, somebody who's sitting at home who really wants to do this, who just doesn't have the confidence to take that leap. Maybe just seeing somebody, a real artist, a real professional artist, do it for them and say, you can do this too.